All right, so who doesn't love a good scary story, right? Even better when it's a campfire story, you know?
Yeah, there's just something about being out in nature that makes those scary stories hit a little differently.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of why when you sent over all these spooky camping stories, I was like, okay, yeah, we gotta deep dive into this.
Right.
Whether you're someone who's planning a camping trip, maybe doing some research for a project, or you're just here for the thrills.
Just love that spooky stuff.
Exactly. We got you covered.
I am curious, though,
Yeah.
what is it about camping horror in particular that you think draws us in? Is
Oh.
it that isolation, the darkness, that kind of feeling of being surrounded by the unknown when you're out there?
Yeah, all of that. And I think there's something about being in nature that kind of strips away our like sense of security a bit, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like we're tapping into some primal fear
Yeah,
buried deep within us.
definitely stepping outside of that comfort zone,
For sure.
going into a world where we're not necessarily at the top of the food chain anymore.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're exploring a YouTube video called 4 Freaky True Camping Horror Stories.
Okay.
And it's from a channel called Mr. Nightmare.
All right.
I don't know if you've heard of him, but his voice is perfect for this.
Okay.
It's all spooky and atmospheric.
I like it.
It's like he's right there with you in the tent.
Even the format itself
Yeah.
lends itself to that kind of unease, right? Like
Yeah.
even if the stories themselves weren't about camping,
Right.
the darkness, that vulnerability we feel in nature, those elements are already setting the stage
Literally.
for fear.
Okay, so let's jump into the first story.
Right.
It's about a 15-year-old Boy Scout
Okay.
who's on a camping trip, and it really gets under your skin.
Right.
Just imagine being alone in your tent at night, miles from civilization.
Ooh, yeah, the classic setup, right?
Like that.
For a camping horror story.
Yeah,
Definitely plays on that fear of being isolated and vulnerable in the dark.
right. So this kid, he's in his tent, right? His friend bailed on the trip at the last minute, so he's all alone, wakes up in the middle of the night and hears someone stomping around his tent.
Oh, no.
Not just walking, but like stomping in a circle.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. He thinks it's one of the other scouts messing with him, but the Scoutmasters made them all pitch their tents far apart, so he's pretty isolated.
Oh, that's not good.
So he yells out, "Who's there?" And the stomping just stops.
Oh.
Silence.
Oh,
And then whatever it was runs off into the woods.
it is terrifying.
Right. But it gets worse.
Oh, no.
The stomping comes back again, circling the tent.
Okay.
So this time he's fed up,
Yeah.
unzips the tent, gets ready to confront whoever's messing with him, and
Yeah.
that's when he sees it.
Uh-oh, what is it? Don't tell me it wasn't another scout.
No. Okay. It's a grown man,
Oh, God.
tall, probably in his mid-30s, just standing there with this unsettling smile.
Oh, no, thank you.
Puts his finger to his lips, signaling the kid to be quiet.
This is where it gets disturbing, right?
Oh, yeah.
The age difference.
Yeah.
The stranger appearing in the middle of the night
Oh, yeah.
definitely feeds into that fear
Yeah.
of being preyed upon by someone older and stronger.
Absolutely. And they never found the guy.
Oh, no.
Like, they found his footprints around the tent, but that was it.
It's the lack of closure that's scary, too.
Totally.
Right, like the unanswered questions.
Right.
Who was he? What did he want?
Yeah, the creepiness lingered long after the trip.
It makes you feel like something is off,
Totally.
even when you're safe at home.
It's like that saying, we're more afraid of the dark because we can't see what's in it.
Yeah.
Our minds fill in the blanks with the worst case scenario.
Totally. And this story has a lot in common with that one about the group of friends who hear someone laughing in the woods at night.
Oh, yeah, the sounds in the woods story.
Yeah.
That one freaked me out, too.
Yeah.
Laughter's supposed to be a happy sound, but in that context, it's just like bone chilling.
It's not.
It's not.
It's the incongruity of it.
Yeah.
Like laughter in the dark, away from the campfire, or any source of light.
Yeah.
It just makes your mind jump to something sinister.
Yeah, it's like our brains are wired to interpret anything out of the ordinary as a threat, especially when we're in that kind of vulnerable position.
Yeah. And let's not forget the power of suggestion.
Right.
Like when we hear something creepy, we start looking for evidence to confirm those fears,
Yeah.
even if it isn't really there.
Yeah, it's like that time I went camping and swore I heard footsteps outside my tent all night.
Oh, no.
Turns out it was just a branch scraping against the canvas, but at the time I was convinced it was a bear.
Our imagination runs wild
Oh, yeah.
when we're in a heightened state of alertness.
Absolutely.
And you just become hyper aware of every sound and every shadow.
Right.
And then you start to interpret everything through the lens of your fear.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, how we've talked about the fear of the unknown with these first 2 stories, but in different ways.
Okay.
Like the Boy Scout story. That's about the fear of a tangible threat, like a creepy stranger in the dark.
Right.
But the sounds in the woods, it's more of the unseen, the unknown entity.
Yeah, just knowing that something's out there
That's right.
and we don't know what it is.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another kind of fear.
Yeah.
It's less about a physical threat and more about that violation of our security and privacy.
Okay.
The story with the photos in the tent.
Oh, man, that one is creepy.
Oh, yeah.
On a whole other level.
For sure.
This guy goes backpacking alone in the Canadian wilderness, takes a bunch of pictures with a disposable camera, gets home, develops them, and finds 2 pictures of himself asleep in his tent.
Oh my God, and he was miles from anybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disturbing.
It really is.
The thought of someone watching you,
Yeah.
invading your personal space when you don't know.
It's just like a
So,
violation of your sanctuary,
You do.
your safe space.
Like your tent is supposed to be your little haven.
Exactly. You go camping to escape the everyday, to connect with nature, and then,
And then bam.
yeah, you realize you might not be as alone as you thought.
Exactly. And it raises those unsettling questions like,
Yeah.
who took those photos? How did they get in the tent without him waking up?
Yeah.
And, what were their intentions?
Yeah.
It's like a chilling reminder that even in the vast wilderness, we are not immune to the intrusion of others.
And he never finds out who took the pictures.
Ugh, I hate that.
I know.
Just adds to the unease.
Yeah.
You can't rationalize it.
You can't.
You can't explain it away.
It's like the fear lingers.
It does.
Because you just don't have an answer.
Yeah, and it just makes you think
Yeah.
about the power of mystery and unanswered questions.
Right?
Especially when it comes to something as personal as a violation of your privacy like that.
Such a good point. It's a perfect example of how a simple act, taking a picture, can be twisted into something creepy and menacing, depending on the context. It's not about gore or violence, it's just about the psychological impact of the unknown and that feeling of being watched.
Which brings us to another theme
Yeah.
that's often explored in these camping horror stories.
Okay.
The menacing presence of other humans,
Ooh.
right? Because it's not always the creatures of the night that we need to be afraid of.
It's true.
Sometimes it's our own species
Yeah.
that poses the greatest threat.
That is a good point. Let's talk about the sketchy dudes encounter.
Okay.
This one is a slow burn, but it really builds the suspense.
All right.
So this couple goes camping in the gorge, and right off the bat, they spot these 2 sketchy-looking dudes eyeing them from their van.
Oh, just that initial observation
Yeah,
plants a seed of doubt, doesn't it?
it does.
It makes you question everyone's intentions.
Right.
Like your subconscious is telling you to be careful,
Totally.
to be on guard.
So they find a camping spot, they start gathering firewood, and suddenly this guy appears out of nowhere,
Oh no.
offering to sell them wood for $10.
Wait, they're surrounded by trees.
I know. It's weird, right?
Yeah, that's weird.
It's like, why?
Yeah, that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it suggests that maybe something off.
Right. Like, why is he doing that?
Exactly. And when they point that out, he claims they won't find any wood because they already cleared it out.
They.
Yeah, who are they? What is he even talking about?
That is creepy.
It is. It makes him seem suspicious.
It does. It's like a manipulation tactic almost.
Yeah.
Like introducing ambiguity to confuse
Right.
and gain an advantage.
Yeah.
By being vague and contradictory,
Ugly.
he's making them question their own perceptions and potentially making them more vulnerable.
Yeah, and then he starts giving these conflicting stories about how long he's been camping there, whether he's alone, even mentioning that he's homeless and lives in the woods behind the girl's workplace.
Well,
It's like he's trying too hard to seem harmless,
yeah,
but he just ends up coming across as even creepier.
right. It's the inconsistency and
Yeah.
that overly friendly demeanor. That makes you think there's a hidden agenda there.
Yeah.
He's testing the waters, seeing how far he can push things.
Right. And then he does something that really sends chills down my spine.
Okay, what is it?
He takes them to his campsite, which is full of supplies for multiple people, even though he claimed to be alone.
That's where the power dynamic shifts,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
He's no longer a stranger. He's a potential threat.
Yeah, the presence of others, even if they're unseen, really amplifies the vulnerability and isolation.
For sure.
And then he drops this bombshell. He tells them he likes camping up top where he can see everything and everyone and points out their campsite, which he has a clear view of.
Oh, that's a classic intimidation tactic.
Yeah.
Just asserting dominance and control.
Right.
Reminding them that they're vulnerable, that they're at his mercy.
And they hear him throughout the night snapping twigs and branches around their tarp.
Oh my God.
They're convinced he's out there watching them.
Ugh. That is awful.
It's like he's playing a psychological game.
Keeping them on edge, making them question their sanity.
And that's what makes this story so unsettling.
Right.
It's not just the fear of attack.
Yeah.
It's the psychological torment.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're being watched and preyed upon by someone who is clearly enjoying it.
Yeah, it's like he's feeding off their fear.
Yeah.
Drawing energy from it.
Exactly.
And that's what makes them decide to leave in the middle of the night.
They're reaching a breaking point.
Yeah.
Like they're realizing the psychological toll is too much
Right.
safety over comfort in that moment.
And as they're packing up, he yells out, "Leaving so soon."
Oh, that's so creepy.
I know, it's like he was expecting it.
He was watching them,
Yeah.
manipulating them, playing with their fear.
And then as they're running away, he yells for them to come back.
Like something out of a nightmare.
I know. They call the Rangers the next morning, but who knows what would have happened if they stayed.
Oh, it doesn't even bear thinking about.
It doesn't.
This story raises a lot of important questions,
It does.
which we will get into after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
That sketchy dude story, it really makes you think though, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you know when to trust your gut
Right?
versus when you're just being paranoid?
Yeah, it is a tricky balance, you know.
Yeah.
We don't want to let fear control our lives, but we also don't want to ignore those red flags that could potentially keep us safe.
Exactly. So how do we find that sweet spot? You know, how do
Yeah.
we feel more empowered, less vulnerable when we're out in the wilderness?
Well, I think for starters, we need to understand that our perceptions are often colored by our own experiences and anxieties, you know.
Yeah.
What might seem threatening to one person could be completely innocuous to another.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate here, what if those sketchy dudes are just like socially awkward, you know?
Yeah.
Just terrible at reading social cues.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't realize how creepy they were coming across.
It's possible, you know.
Yeah.
Not everyone who behaves strangely has malicious intent. Sometimes it's just a case of miscommunication or social ineptitude.
Okay, so then how do we separate genuine red flags
Right.
from just like weirdness?
Yeah.
What are some signs that we should be paying attention to?
Well, one thing to look out for is a discrepancy between someone's words and actions.
Okay.
Like if they're saying one thing, but their body language is telling a different story, that's a potential warning sign.
Right, like with the sketchy dudes, they kept giving all those conflicting accounts of how long they'd been camping and if they were alone or not.
Right. Yeah. Seems like a red flag looking back on it.
Totally.
For sure.
And pay attention to your gut
Oh, yeah.
if something feels off.
Absolutely.
It probably is.
Our intuition is usually a good guide,
Yeah.
even if we can't articulate why we feel uneasy.
But it's also important to avoid overreacting, though, right?
For sure.
Like, not every awkward encounter is a sign of impending danger.
Right. It's about finding that balance between caution and common sense.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
we don't want to live in a constant state of fear,
Right.
but we also don't want to be naive and put ourselves in unnecessary risk.
Okay, so what are some practical things then that people can do to feel safer while camping?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who is maybe a little apprehensive about venturing out into the wilderness after hearing these stories?
You know, I think planning and preparation are key.
Okay.
Like before you even head out, research the area, you know,
Okay.
familiarize yourself with the terrain, the potential hazards, you know, any safety guidelines that are specific to that location.
That makes sense. Like, knowing what to expect can help you feel more confident and less vulnerable.
Exactly. And let someone know your itinerary.
Okay.
You know, tell them where you're going, when you expect to be back, and who they should contact if they don't hear from you.
That's a good reminder. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement of a camping trip and forget about those basic precautions.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate packing the right gear.
Okay.
A map, compass, first aid kit, headlamp, you know, all those essential items
Right.
that can help you in an emergency.
What about things like self-defense
Oh, yeah.
or wilderness survival training? Would
Oh,
you
yeah.
recommend that?
They can definitely be beneficial.
Okay.
You know, knowing how to defend yourself,
Yeah.
how to handle those unexpected situations can definitely boost your confidence
Right.
and your sense of security, for sure.
So it's not just about avoiding danger.
Right.
It's about feeling prepared
Yeah.
and capable of handling whatever comes your way.
Exactly. It's about kind of shifting your mindset
Okay.
from one of fear to one of self-reliance and resilience.
You know, it's interesting how we often focus on the physical aspects of safety when we talk about camping,
Yeah,
but the mental aspect is just as important.
absolutely. Our mental state can have a huge impact on how we perceive and react to threats.
Right.
If we're anxious and on edge all the time, we're more likely to misinterpret situations and make bad decisions.
So what can we do to like cultivate a more positive and resilient mindset when we're out there?
Well, one thing that can really help is practicing mindfulness.
Okay.
So instead of letting your thoughts race,
Yeah.
thinking about all those worst case scenarios,
Yeah.
try to focus on the present moment.
Okay.
Just pay attention to the sights, sounds, sensations.
Yeah.
Connect with the beauty of nature.
Right.
Allow yourself to feel a sense of awe and wonder.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in our heads
Yeah.
and forget to appreciate the amazing experience of being out in nature.
Exactly.
What else?
Well, don't be afraid to challenge those negative thoughts when they creep in.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what's the evidence for this thought?
Right.
Is it based in reality, or am I just catastrophizing?
Yeah. It's like we're talking about a mental first aid kit for
Yeah, right.
dealing with fear and anxiety.
We need to equip ourselves with the tools and techniques
Yeah.
to manage those emotions
Okay.
and stay calm.
That makes sense.
Stay clear-headed.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking about all these scary stories and how to stay safe, but there's also like a certain thrill that comes with facing our fears, right?
Absolutely, there's an element of excitement to it.
Yeah.
Pushing those boundaries,
Right.
stepping outside your comfort zone,
Yeah.
embracing that adrenaline rush.
It's like that Boy Scout story, even though it was terrifying,
Yeah.
it probably also gave him a sense of resilience and self-reliance.
Like a rite of passage almost.
Yeah.
A test of courage and adaptability.
Right, we face our fears, we survive, and we come out stronger.
Yeah.
So it's not just about avoiding the danger, it's about embracing the challenge,
Yes.
the adventure, the unknown.
It's about finding that balance between caution and courage.
Yeah.
Respecting the power of nature, but also harnessing our own inner strength.
Speaking of embracing the unknown, that photos in the tent story still has me thinking.
Oh, yeah.
We're so used to feeling safe in our homes
Yeah.
that the idea of someone invading that space is just unsettling.
Definitely, it is a reminder
Yeah,
that privacy is fragile.
it is.
Even in the wilderness,
Yeah.
we seek solitude in nature,
Yeah.
but we're never truly alone.
And that's what makes it so creepy.
Right.
The not knowing,
Right.
was it a prank, a stalker,
Yeah. Who knows?
something even more sinister?
It's the mystery that haunts us.
It
The
is.
questions that linger
Yeah.
long after the story's over.
It makes you wonder, are we ever truly safe anywhere?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
It's something we'll always grapple with, I think,
I think so too.
as we explore the darker side of the human experience.
It's fascinating how these stories tap into something deeper
Yeah.
than just the fear of physical harm.
It really highlights that psychological interplay
Yeah.
between our environment and our perception of danger.
Right.
Like, we've been talking about specific threats,
Yeah.
but what about that underlying feeling of unease? Even when there's no obvious danger present.
Right.
Like when you're alone in the woods, the sun's starting to set,
Yeah.
and suddenly every shadow just seems menacing.
Oh, absolutely. It's like our senses go into overdrive.
Yeah.
Every little rustle of leaves sounds like footsteps.
Right.
Your imagination starts running wild.
Totally. Like our evolutionary wiring kicks in.
Yeah.
We're descended from people who were constantly scanning for threats.
Right.
Those who weren't vigilant, they didn't survive.
It's kind of amazing that we still have those instincts,
It is.
even though we're not facing like saber-toothed tigers every day.
Right. It speaks to the power of those primal fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
The darkness.
Yeah, no.
The feeling of being vulnerable out in nature.
Yeah, those fears are deep,
They are.
and they can come up even when there's no real threat.
Exactly.
And what's interesting is how those fears can be exhilarating
Yeah.
and terrifying at the same time.
Right. It's part of the appeal.
It is. It's that push outside our comfort zone. Absolutely.
Testing our limits, that adrenaline rush.
If you connect it to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
it's about our relationship with nature itself.
Okay.
We're drawn to the beauty, the tranquility.
Right.
We crave that connection.
Yeah.
But we also recognize the power, the potential dangers.
That's a good point. It's a healthy respect, I think.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're not always in control.
Right.
There are forces greater than us out there.
Absolutely.
It keeps us grounded,
Yeah.
reminds us to approach nature with humility.
And that awareness, that balance
Yeah.
between awe and apprehension,
Yeah.
that's what allows us to appreciate the wilderness.
That's a good point.
It's not about conquering it, you know?
Right.
It's about coexisting,
Right.
understanding our place within that web of life.
So what does this all mean for
Yeah.
our listeners who might be feeling a little spooked after this deep dive?
I'd say embrace the thrill of the unknown,
Okay.
but don't let it consume you.
Right.
Be prepared.
Be aware. Trust your instincts.
Okay?
Equip yourself with the knowledge and the skills to navigate the wilderness safely.
Makes sense.
But don't let a few scary stories
Yeah.
stop you from experiencing the joy,
The wonder of the outdoors.
the outdoors.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From those unexplained noises and encounters
Yeah,
to the very real concerns about safety when we're in isolated areas.
absolutely.
We talked about the psychology of fear.
The power of suggestion,
Yeah.
critical thinking,
Right.
when you're evaluating potential threats.
And we learned sometimes the scariest monsters
Yeah.
are the ones we create in our own minds.
It's true.
So as you head out on your next camping adventure,
Yeah.
remember to be kind.
Be respectful.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the impact you have on others,
Okay.
because you never know who's watching.
Or listening.
Exactly.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us
Thanks for having me.
for this deep dive into creepy camping stories.
It's been fun.
Remember, knowledge is power,
It is.
and a healthy dose of fear can keep us alert and alive.
That's right.
Stay safe out there and happy camping.